Hi, everyone, and welcome to Competency Corner Live. I'm Sarah Beckett, VP of Marketing at HRSG and the host of our little web show. We have Suzanne Simpson, our founder and CEO of the company, here joining us today to answer all of your questions. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
And we're, of course, coming to you live from sunny Ottawa, first days of spring, so it's great to be launching off with the new season.
It's a beautiful day here in Ottawa. We still have snow on the ground, but I'm really looking forward to those flowers coming up.
Can't wait. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. As I said, we have received so many questions in advance, so this is really, really great. Our new format seems to be really working for us. So thank you to everybody who signed up and registered in advance. So Suzanne, our first question comes to us from Saeed. What is the relationship between competence and performance? Saeed says the objective is to increase individual and collective levels of performance.
So it's a great question, Saeed. I think that most companies are faced these days with looking at how do you improve performance overall for the company and how do you improve individual performance. So I look at performance as basically the what you must accomplish in your job or your role, and that should be related overall to the performance of the company. So it might be to improve the number of marketing leads that are coming in if you're in Lorraine's or in Sarah's job. It could be a variety of things. So what does it take in order for you to be able to do that as an individual? It takes certain capabilities or competencies needed for success to do that. So Sarah may be looking for things like their tenaciousness, their ability to focus on their job, those sorts of things that tend to be general across different kinds of jobs, but she may also be looking for certain marketing related skills and technical capabilities. So that's what it takes. It's a combination of what is it that the person has to perform in their job and what competencies and capabilities do you have to bring to the job in order for you to be able to do that.
Perfect. Thank you, Suzanne. So our next question comes to us from Amor. So what competencies can be used to support talent management?
Oh, that's a big question. Competencies come in a variety of forms. So you can have like core competencies that are integral to the success of the company as a whole. Those may be things like in our company, we have three main competencies that are important for success. First of all, and most importantly, is we have to focus on our client and our client needs. And the second one relates to innovative and creative processes and putting ourselves ahead of the curve in terms of being able to deliver to our client base. And thirdly, we also have to operate in a team-based environment, because if we want to stay ahead of the curve in terms of our capabilities, we need to have those kinds of capabilities. Our ability to work together as a team.
Absolutely.
And then you may need extra competencies that are related to the job that are general in nature, such as initiative, attention to detail. And the third type are basically those technical skills we just talked about, the kinds of things that you bring to your job in terms of technical and professional capabilities. So,
perfect. Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, we're going to move on to our next question, which comes to us from Li Peng. So Li Peng, who is actually a client of ours, so thank you very much for tuning in. What is the best way to define technical competencies? So Li Peng's group, they use the HRSG's general competencies with 5 levels of proficiency, but worry that they cannot have the same number of levels for technical competencies as the more general behavioral competencies. So how do they maintain that consistency in their model?
Okay, that's really a good question, and we've tackled that question many times over when we've been supporting our clients and creating technical and professional competencies that make sense. So let's go back to the basics. A technical competency or a professional competency really should describe what's needed at a very basic level, right up to a mastery level where the individual has to be top of their game. They may be setting standards for the organization. They may be coaching and developing other people within that area of responsibility So that's basically what we're looking for in terms of the technical professional scale. Now, how you divide the pieces from basic to mastery level is another question. Sometimes, for the most part, we try to stick to a 5-level model with increments of proficiency on that 5-level scale. In some cases, we've also worked with clients who really say, we can't divide it in that many levels. We can only come up with 4 levels. So we work with a client either on a 5-level or a 4-level model. Most of the technical professional competencies that we have in our libraries are based on a 5-level model. So it's possible to do it that way.
And when you're implementing these competencies, should you be using the same number of levels across all of your competencies within the same organization?
Well, I would say certainly within a job or functional area. Right. Okay, so let's take your case.
Yep.
We'll talk about marketing again. So marketing, for sure, you don't want some of your scales that are 4 and some of them are 5, because what you're trying to do is set up a model that will show employees how they progress from one level to the next. So if you have 2 different types, 4s and 5s within the same area, it becomes problematic. So that's my answer. Basically, keep it consistent, certainly within a functional area.
Absolutely.
And if you can, across the organization, it just makes it a lot easier, because remember, employees might not only be looking for progression within their own area of function, but maybe making a career jump from one area of the organization to another. So trying to keep to a consistent model with the same number of proficiency levels for all the functional areas in your organization is probably the best way to go.
Perfect. Thanks, Suzanne. So our next question is also around technical competencies and roles. So this comes to us from Wakija, and I hope I pronounced your name properly. In an organization where I have multiple technical roles, each specific to its own existence in a department, she says, I'm finding it quite challenging to list down all the technical specifications. So the question is, how many technical competencies should I consider while developing the matrix?
Okay, I'm going to pick on you again,
okay.
Sarah. So do you recall how many competencies we have in our marketing area for in our libraries? I would guess there's about, what, 8, 9?
In the core technical library, our corporate technical library, we have, there's 8. Mm-hmm. There's an additional, I would say, almost 20. Mm-hmm. Of course, marketing is changing a lot and so rapidly. We've just recently introduced a whole new set of digital marketing competencies. So I would think, in different areas where they're evolving more rapidly, there might be.
Okay, so an organization that has a sophisticated marketing capability may have as many as 20 different kinds of competencies in a technical area like marketing. Yeah. And this can happen in information technology and all the other areas. So clearly what you have in your library may be extensive, but when you come to the individual or the individual job within an area, so going back to our marketing group, I mean, Sarah doesn't ask for competencies for each of the people, 20 competencies for each person. It depends on the nature of their jobs and their responsibilities. So you use the library perhaps to select from the list that you have, those that are most appropriate to the position and the requirements, the performance requirements of the job. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And it probably depends on the breadth of the jobs. So, continuing in the vein of the marketing group, we have some very distinct jobs. So we have a graphic designer versus our copywriter. Those competencies, some of the technical ones are very different as compared to our digital marketer positions. So that would probably be a factor to consider as well.
Yeah. So I guess the answer is really you can have a fair number in your library that covers off a functional area, but you do have to be very careful about choosing those competencies that relate best to the responsibilities of the job. The other factor you have to consider is you don't want to load every single job with a lot of competencies, because what ends up happening, you have to use them in selection. You have to use them in providing guidance with learning and development. So what are the most, the ones that are most critical to success in the job or the role that you're looking at?
Perfect. Thanks, Suzanne. Okay, so our next question comes to us from Matt. So, Suzanne, if you can maybe comment a little bit about some of the ways to encourage adoption of competencies. And this question, Matt is asking specifically about mid-sized organizations.
Okay, well, I think the rules are pretty much the same for mid to extremely large organizations. The first and most important factor is that there has to be a felt need for the competencies and the competency-based talent management system at the most senior levels of the organization. They're the ones that are faced with the problem of getting the organization, say, from a certain level of revenue to another level of revenue, making a transition perhaps to a new kind or new way of doing their business, and dealing with certain market-related issues. They're very concerned about those sorts of things. And they're concerned as well about the talent that's required in order to achieve those goals, those performance goals for the company as a whole. So first and foremost, the leadership of the organization really has to be committed to this. So if it's coming from the HR group as an initiative, but there's no buy-in at the senior management level, you're seriously in trouble, okay? So the other stakeholder group that's very important is the senior levels of the organization may be extremely committed to this, but what about your intermediate management level positions? They have to execute on competency-based talent management. They have to be committed. So what you have to do is think about communication and change strategies that looks at what's in it for them as managers. Finally, employees, I mean, they have to buy it. What's in it for them? Why would they want to go down this route? How is it going to help them in their individual careers? So having a communication change management program that addresses that is extremely important. You also may have some external stakeholders that you have to be concerned about. Maybe you have a unionized environment. Maybe there's associations or groups or clients that it's really important to get their understanding and from their perspective. So we always take a multi-stakeholder perspective on this and try to deal with different levels within the organization, different what's in it for me kind of perspective. Okay,
for sure. So Suzanne, I'm going to move on to the next question, and it builds on this one. So, but focus specifically around the leadership. So, do some organizations or executive managers resist the use of competencies, of competency-based approach, and why would they be resisting?
Okay, so first of all, in some cases, we've seen situations where the organization, unless there's a kind of a burning bridge that you're approaching, like, okay, we're going to go out of business if we don't become more innovative in how we deliver our product or services, that sort of thing. If it's not a felt need, then that can be a problem. Okay,
sure.
And at their level, so just repeat the question.
Yeah, so this comes to us from Rick.
Yeah.
So do some organizations and/or executives or managers resist the use of competencies?
Yes, and yeah, absolutely. And part of that resistance relates to, the felt need for change within the organization for the most part. The other resistance may come from the fact that they feel this is going to be a large and labor-intensive and distracting effort. So methodologies have to be created or put in place that will draw on the capabilities and stakeholder input, but at the same time not overburden the organization and become a distraction for the ongoing operations of the organization. So those are two main resistance areas, and we work on approaches that will address both. So
great, thanks, Suzanne. Okay, so our next question is from Sophia, and Sophia's joining us live. So what issues or problems do organizations encounter? Again, this goes back to the same kind of stuff we've been talking about when they integrate competencies within an existing talent management framework?
Well, sometimes the resistance can actually come from the personnel or the HR area. So if you're used to delivering selection of programs and systems in a certain way, this approach calls for defining, like, for example, the standards needed for selection, maybe in a slightly different way. Maybe you need to put new programs in place, etc. So that could result in resistance from the HR area for sure, because they're vested in the programs that they've developed, they're committed to what they're doing, and like any other change, this is going to require additional effort to try to figure out, okay, how are things going to change? But like everything else, what's in it for them? Are they going to get improved, more efficient ways of doing business? Is it going to improve their client satisfaction amongst the operational group, etc.?
Perfect. Thanks, Suzanne. Okay, so we've got time for a couple more questions, and anybody who has submitted questions in advance, if we don't get to your questions today live, we only have 20 minutes. We will make sure to send you those answers after the fact. So our next question here is from, I'm jumping around. Okay. This is around assessment, Suzanne.
Okay.
So it comes from Jillian. Jillian, thank you very much for your question. Do you have any best practices or lessons learned around assessing based on competencies?
Well, that's a
big question.
Big question.
So maybe pick one little part of it.
All right. So the first part of it is assessment and defining what that is.
Yes.
Okay. So assessment can be, for example, assessing based on its competency-based interview questions, or it could be, so that's one approach. You could be using assessment techniques that are based around the competencies that are in your library or your dictionary that can be delivered like in a survey format, right? Of that kind of thing. Or it can be, as sophisticated as some form of test that is built specifically around the competencies needed for positions in your organization. So there's a range of ways you can assess. We provide a lot of that support in our libraries, for example. So, if you have a competency like, well, let's say client focus, right? We have questions that can be used in interviews that relate to the various levels of proficiency required for client focus. We have questions and a software that actually relates to sophisticated standardized testing procedures. So that's another thing. And we have approaches towards delivery of our surveys or assessment software that gets to, like, where are you in terms of your competencies? How well do you perform in terms of the various proficiencies or behavioral indicators for those competencies? So does that answer the question?
I think so,
Sarah?
Yeah, I think so. It was a pretty general question. So I think we've got time for one more question. So we're going to go to this question from Cheryl. So Cheryl, thank you very much for submitting. So this is about HRSG actually, which is why we saved it till the end. Did you have to create a competency model for your organization? And if yes, what was the process that you undertook?
Definitely, yes. Definitely. I've already talked a little bit about our competency model. I talked about the fact that we have 3 core competencies. And why do we have those competencies? Because, it's extremely important for us to stay ahead of our game. It's extremely important for us to respond to client needs. It's extremely important for us to operate as a team. So those are the main competencies that we require of everybody in the organization, because we're a growing organization. We've actually doubled our size in the last year. And so bringing everybody on board with a core set of capabilities or appreciation for where we're going as an organization is really important. But beyond that, like every other organization, we have groups or functions in the company. We have professional services areas, we have marketing, sales, we have IT and development areas, etc. So all of those require their own capabilities. So in our model, we have, in the job family competencies, and then we boil it right down to the individual level where There might be individual capabilities that are required specific to the job. So yes, we do implement exactly what we're advising our clients to do. And we're also using our own software to assess capabilities within our company, provide guidance to our employees in terms of their learning and development. This is extremely important because we have lots and lots of new employees coming on board. And we want to make sure that they're well launched in their careers at HRSG.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Suzanne. We're going to wrap it up for today. So thanks to everyone who joined us live, who submitted questions in advance. We really, really appreciate it. Come back, check us out again. Next month, we'll have our next guest, which we will be announcing very soon. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.